Somewhere between your first management role and where you are today, you started leading the way that you think you're supposed to lead, but not necessarily how you are naturally wired to lead. You lead how you think leadership should look. And if you're being honest with yourself, it's probably exhausting. So today we're going to talk about one of the most overlooked elements of transitioning into becoming an executive. And that's building a leadership style that's actually yours. Not your old boss's style, not what you think some great leader looks and sounds like, and certainly not what your company's culture expects. Yours. And here's why this matters more than you might think. When you start leading from your morals, values, and beliefs, you stop performing leadership and you start doing it. That shift from performing to doing is what separates executives who last from those who burn out about 3 years in. So here's what I'm going to give you in the next 10 minutes. First, why most professionals accidentally copy someone else's leadership style and why it's not your fault. Second, how to surface those morals, values, and beliefs that should anchor your style. And third, how to build a style around those morals, values, and beliefs, including what to do when your style doesn't match what others expect you to do. Let's dive into it. Welcome into the channel. My name is Tom. I'm the founder of Vertical Motion. We help good people become great leaders. We work with authentic, empathetic, and audacious leaders aspiring to executive levels, director, vice president, C-suite, or business leader. Those are interesting to you. There's a link down below, and consider subscribing to this channel. About 50% of the people who watch these videos are not currently subscribed. It would mean a lot to me if you did. And I put these videos out about once a week. I think they're valuable, and I think it would be great if you would give them a watch on a weekly basis. And if you have a specific topic you want me to cover, just put a comment down below and let me know what that is. I'd be glad to curate some content for you specifically. With that, let's get back into what we're talking about today, which is about creating your own leadership style. Now, here's the thing about leadership. We learn by watching, right? We pay attention to, early in our career, we'll see someone stand up in a meeting, say something with commanding authority, and everyone's paying attention, and they have this presence that just everyone is respecting what this person has to say. And so later on in your life, when it's your turn to show up as a leader in front of a team, well, you just kind of pull that old file out and replay what that meeting felt and looked like, and you start acting like that person did. Well, the problem is that that file belongs to somebody else. That's their leadership style, and that is attuned and matched to their strengths and weaknesses. I mean, think of it like you're trying to wear their suit. It's not going to be a perfect fit for you because it wasn't made for you. And when we lead from a style that isn't naturally ours, we feel the friction of this constantly. We're second-guessing decisions we really shouldn't have to second-guess. And we're performing leadership as opposed to actually leading. And your team feels it too. They're not following the strategy that you set out. They're following you. And if you're not really there, if it's just a character you're playing, well, that mask slips one time and they'll never trust you again. This is why authenticity is one of the 3 most important traits that I look for and screen for in executive candidates that I work with. So let me ask you a question. When was the last time that you sat there and actually thought to yourself, what do I believe about leadership? Not what your organization believes, not what people around you feel like they want you to be or what they believe. What do you believe? Most people can't really answer that question without defaulting to someone else's opinion, and that's the problem here. So this is where we start. We start not with your style, but with your values. What are your morals, values, and belief? And values, this is not the card with 50 adjectives that corporate hands you after an HR pizza kumbaya thing. No, this is actually, what do you value? What do you believe? What do your morals say? Where do you want to go in life, in your career? What's important to you? What is non-negotiable? What are these things that make up who you are? Now, here's how to surface those. I want you to think about 2 moments. The first one is a leadership decision that you genuinely feel proud of, even if it cost you something. What were you protecting in that moment? What did you refuse to let go of? What was a non-negotiable for you? Now, moment 2 is a moment where you were watching someone else lead and their leadership style made you feel uncomfortable. Not frustrated, not annoyed, uncomfortable. Like, what was being violated? What would you want to do differently than what they did? Now, those 2 moments are a great roadmap for you to find your leadership style. What you protected and what you couldn't stand to be seen ignored. That's the foundation of your values. So some of the ones that I see most common in professionals: transparency, fairness, growth, ownership, psychological safety. But your list is yours. Don't borrow someone else's. Mine, for example, I look for authenticity, empathy, audacity. It's non-negotiable for me to only work in environments that are ethical and moral and just. And I'm a defender of those who can't defend themselves. Those are my values, not yours, mine. I want you to think about those two moments and come up with your values. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because knowing your values is really only half of the work here. The harder part, and this is where most people actually get stuck, is leading from those values when everyone else expects you to do something different. Now, your organization probably has a culture, and your industry probably has a type. And your boss might expect you to lead the same way that she does. And none of that is your leadership style if it's not coming from your values. So let me give you 3 practical tips here on how to develop your leadership style. Number 1, name your style explicitly. Don't leave it up to interpretation. Tell your team, this is how I lead. These are the values from which I lead. Here's what you can expect from me, and here's what I expect from you. And this transparency is actually a signal of strength and confidence. It also removes any ambiguity, right? It's making it clear, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is what I believe, this is how I'm going to lead, and all of my decisions will be filtered through these values. If everybody understands your values, you actually become a much more predictable leader, which is what we like. We like to predict what our leader's going to say and do because it helps us perform or execute the strategy in the way that the leader is expecting it to be done. And this builds a ton of trust between your team and you. If they know you're going to show up the same way, well, they'll start to trust you more. If you show up erratic with different modalities and energies every single day, they won't know what to expect. It's a chaotic relationship for them. So show up and believe in and lean into your values, but make sure that they are known to your team. And that brings me to number 2, which is use your values as a decision filter. When you're sitting in a meeting and something just doesn't feel right, well, run it through your values. Ask yourself, does this decision actually reflect what I believe? And if it doesn't, well, push back, ask more questions, get more clarity, get comfortable with the idea, or nix the idea entirely. And you don't want to necessarily shut down every idea. You don't want to be a bulldozer, but you also don't want to be silent if there is a decision being made that you're not comfortable with. You need to understand what is making you uncomfortable and then voice that so that other people can either address it or recognize it. And that brings us to the 3rd point, which is really the most important here, and that is to protect your leadership style even in high-pressure situations. Because here's what's going to happen. There's going to be moments where the pressure for you to conform is very real. A senior leader who wants you to just be harder on your team, or a culture that doesn't reward the transparency that you're committed to, or a peer group where everyone's playing these political shenanigan games and you don't really want to. And I wish I could have told myself this 20 years ago. You don't fight the culture head on. You demonstrate that your way works. Now, I've said time and again on this channel that there are 2 ways to the top. One of them involves manipulation, the 48 laws of power, and playing politics, and being whatever you need to be in order to be seen as the right guy for the role. The other way is to just be an amazing leader and actually be good at what you do and make solid decisions that are predictable and understandable and based on your morals, values, and beliefs. And so the more you develop your leadership style, you demonstrate this second way, I think, the right way to the top. And this really matters. What happens when the gap between how you want to lead and what your culture demands is too wide? Well, this is why people tend to have what I call the 3-year career phenomenon, where you go somewhere, you're excited to make change, you're all empowered and enthusiastic, and by about 6 months you realize you're not going to change anything. And so you sit there quietly biding your time, slowly burning down that battery until you burn out entirely. And about 2.5 years in, you're looking for your next job, and 3 years on, you're on to your next one. And the cycle repeats, right? And this is really what's happening, is that you're trying to lead in a certain way that's aligned with your morals, values, and beliefs, but the culture is demanding something different from you. And if that's the case, well, maybe you're a flower that's planted in the wrong kind of soil here. And if you don't figure it out, you're not going to recognize yourself by the end of it. So let me bring this all back together, these 3 things. So number 1, you've probably learned your leadership style by watching somebody else. And while that's a great way to learn, in practice, it's time for you to start developing your own leadership style so that you can become, quite honestly, the best version of yourself is the best leader that you can be. Number 2, your morals, values, and beliefs are the foundation of your leadership style. These are what drive your actual decisions, and you can surface them by thinking about real moments in time, what you protected and what you couldn't stand to watch when another leader did it. Write down 3 to 5 of these and be honest with yourself. And then 3, build your leadership style. Name it, make sure everybody understands what your leadership style is, and protect it even in difficult situations. Always filter your leadership decisions through your morals, values, and beliefs, this leadership style that you're building. You can demonstrate this through results that it works. And if the environment that you find yourself in is not in alignment with your leadership style, well, maybe there's something to change there, because that gap is not going to close on its own. Now, the professionals that I have seen transition into executive roles that had the most success, they're not the ones that learned how to play the game the best. They're the ones that show up authentically as themselves, using their actual own developed leadership style as the way that they lead their team. These people show up consistently, clearly, and with enough conviction that people actually followed them because of it. And that's what high impact leadership actually looks like. Now, drop a comment below. I want to hear from you. What is the one leadership value that you will absolutely not compromise on? What is the bedrock of your leadership style? Tell me below in the comments. I want to see these. That's what I have for you today. I hope this was helpful. I hope you do build your own leadership style. And if you want to learn more about how to do that, there's links down below in the description of this video to show you how to build your leadership style. With that, I'll see you in the next one.